Hello, everyone, and welcome to Good Journeys Tarot. I am Rosemary, and today, as always, welcome sunflowers. I am doing my weekly live in which I talk about my 78 cards in 78 weeks project, in which I am going through studying and creating each individual card in my personal tarot deck from Creative Commons Imagery. This week, we are going to be talking about this card, the Page of Cups. But before we do, I thought that I would share some of the updates to cards I've previously done with you, since there's not really anything new other than my haircut to talk about today, while we wait for people to pop into the live. So one of the things that I decided as I was working on my card this week for the Page of Cups was that all of the pages should be around the same age. And when I originally did my Page of Earth or Pentacles, I had used this older person, which in the end, I ended up using in my Fool card. And so I decided I really didn't want this image in both my Fool card and this card. And I had pulled some images for the other pages that I wanted to use, and realizing they were all children, I decided to take this girl in a schoolgirl outfit and use her instead, because she was already reaching up for the apple. One of the things that I have also done as I've worked with this newest card is I've revamped how I'm handling my cords. And I think that will go on throughout this whole project. I didn't want to call them pages, kings, knights, and queens, because we no longer use those terminology really in modern society. But I did want you to know which was which. And so I finally decided to use icons to designate them, as some decks do. In this case, pages, the envelope as our messengers. And you'll also see what I did with the knights and the queens in just a moment. And then, of course, our elemental suit. So in my guidebook, now I am referring to these as the Page of Earth, and then by what is their archetype. This is an idea that Ethany used in her My Tarot Court that I kind of liked. I'm not using specifically her archetypes, but I will be creating my own, or using ones I find from other people that I enjoy as the names for the actual cards in the future. So I did actually revisit the Queen of Wands as well. When I went to go in and put my little icon on, I decided it was just way too busy in comparison to all of my other court cards. So I have gone back and simplified it a little bit. And I have changed the artwork that's on the easel, because I just feel like that this painting that I did is not in sync with the rest of the imagery. You'll see here for the queens, I'm using this particular crown. For the kings, I'll have a different crown when I actually get to any kings. I also did add the shield to our knight, whose archetype is now the charmer. So our Knight of Cups. Hopefully that will resonate with some of you. If not, it could change. You never know. Let's see. I'm going to remove that. Let's take a look at some of my favorite cards from my collection as the Page of Cups. I don't know why my brain is not working. Many of them will adopt the idea of the Smith Waite and add, a person with a fish and lots of water around them. And even this idea of children is thematic of many modern decks. The Slow Tarot is one of the best decks for pages. Like, all of the pages are on point. Here's our Pocket of Peers. a more mature page. I am more a fan of younger pages. In fact, the Bonestone and Earthflesh in their Page of Pentacles, it was just way too hunky and old for me. Here's the This Might Hurt, which I'm going to be using this week on Instagram for my daily card draws. It's a beautiful depiction of the Smith-Waite image. The Rider-Waite deck, again, embracing that idea of children, but keeping the same imagery, the fish, the water, the cup. Again, in the Mystic Garbage Tarot, we have children. All of them have these little silhouettes with an animal, in this case, the Page of Cups, getting on the same level, so to speak, with the giraffe using the balloons. Here is the Modern Love Tarot, which is beautiful. Little girl sitting on a dock, playing with a butterfly. In the Lily White, our page is very reminiscent of the Smith-Waite. Just lovely, flowy water there. The Spacious Tarot, instead of a person, we just have our little goldfish, our koi, that represents our page there. The child, as it were. And the Saucer of Beto draws on the idea of unlocking your emotions. And also you'll see that little bow there. So this is a theme that I'm going to show you in a minute in another card that I never realized was a thing with this card. Perhaps I don't have decks that relate to it in this way. But we'll come back to this card and I'll talk about that bow. Some of them are related to creativity. As I've said before, when I talked about the water suit, I do not associate water with creativity. I do associate with imagination as it's linked to our emotional response. However, for me, the fire suit is all about creativity. So this is not a card that would resonate with me normally. And this is the approach that was taken with the Urban Tarot as well, a thoughts-inspired deck of creativity, of an artist. And then here is the Bonestone and Earthflesh. I actually love this depiction, how the water becomes part of her, a nod to that idea of developing intuition in the Page of Water or Cups, as it were. This is just a gorgeous depiction. Another Thoth-based deck, our Lost Hollow Tarot here, actually incorporates some aspects of the Thoth as well as the RWS. So not only is the princess dancing upon the water, but she's holding that cup with the fish in it, which I think is just beautiful. I think this is an excellent representation of this card. Love it. In the Numinous Tarot, our pages are our dreamers, and this is about intuition here, and intuition surrounding the water. Lovely. Now, this is a card that I don't particularly care for, but I've noticed this is happening in a lot of modern decks, and that is that they make the Page of Cups a bartender. And I don't get that. That doesn't resonate with me at all. If it resonates with you, let me know. How do you connect a bartender with a Page of Cups, a youthful water energy? What does that have to do with a bartender? I don't know. You let me know. So here's the card I was going to talk about, the Light Workers deck, in which the page is portrayed as Cupid. And apparently this is a common theme in some older decks. Obviously, I don't have copies of those decks because I've never seen it until I saw this card. And that's when this image finally really kind of resonated with me, why she was holding that bow. So this idea that this is a message about love or romance, possibly, about infatuation or a crush, but also unlocking our intuition, so to speak, there with our little key. Saucer of Beto, also an excellent deck when it comes to the pages. If you want to see some beautiful pages with deep and meaningful imagery, do love that. So this card is a card that can represent a person, or it can represent an aspect of yourself, as we've often heard. This is going to be about being gentle, insightful, having inspiration, being idealistic, sensitive. This card can represent pregnancy for a lot of people because it is really connected to femininity. The pages are associated with earth, and this card is associated with water. Therefore, earth and water, both feminine aspects. In fact, I would say that you're not going to find a more feminine card than the Page of Cups, apart from the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Pentacles might come close because of the association with water and earth, but I feel like this is probably the most feminine card in the deck next to the Queen of Cups, which is all water. I want to talk about that a little bit, that idea of femininity and masculinity here, because an idea came up in the Jodorowsky book, The Way of the Tarot, which is a Marseille book. And it's a book, as I read more and more of, that I probably am not going to recommend to people. I know some people have some problems with him personally. And as I read more of the book, I kind of have some issues with him as well, though there are some really great things in the book. He talks about this card as representing the androgynous or the homosexual. And I think this kind of goes to this patriarchal idea that men cannot have healthy emotions, right? They can't be in touch with their emotions. And so typically, historically, in the Marseille, this is going to be a young man. And that young man is connected with emotions. And okay, well, men can't be emotional. So therefore, this should be a homosexual. Well, as much as I want to see gay and intersex representation in tarot, I don't buy into that idea from Jodorowsky at all. And I tend to think of this as more a very feminine card, even though in my deck, I am referring to everyone as they. So glad to see some people popping in here. Welcome. Glad to have you. Please do share your thoughts and comments with us as I talk about the card here today. As I said before, this card can represent a crush or an infatuation. This is a youthful energy. So this is not a card that's sexual. It is more about that emotional connection than a physical connection. And it can, because it is both a messenger and the beginnings of something, of basically emotions as well as intuition, can be also about new joy. It can be about that new love, that new crush, right? This is a compassionate and a curious person. So when you see this card, curiosity definitely will come into play, that youthful emotional energy. On the shadow side of this, because emotions are involved, this can be a depressed person, a moody person. This can be that you're emotionally vulnerable. It can be about needing affection. It can also be about fantasy life, right? Just you're not really focusing on reality, but have your head in the clouds, basically, about not coping with reality necessarily. One of the ideas that came up in a book, and I want to say it was Rachel Pollack, but I don't remember for sure, is the idea that this card is associated with doing things just for the sake of doing them, like shopping. And so for me, that kind of kicked in this idea of shopping therapy as the reverse of this card, right? We are trying to feed our emotions through acquiring things. And that's something that I've really struggled with this week, because I have a little bit of money to play with, and I kind of want to purchase a deck that's on my list, right? And so I keep going and looking at the Sacred Sisterhood and the Santa Morte, which are both mass market decks that are on my list right now, and also the Dream Visions Tarot, which is an indie deck. And they all have this energy and this artwork that's completely different than anything in my collection. And I can't decide for myself if that I'm just wanting to buy things to buy things, that whole shopping therapy idea as I work with this particular card, or if it is um, that I really need that deck in my life, right? So definitely on the fence there. Because this is a young person associated with earth and water, they can be about serving others. And because you get that Malkut energy, right? This is on the Tree of Life going to be in the tens. And let's talk a little bit about the Tree of Life because it's interesting how this card plays out, right? Because pages are associated with Malkuth right here where our tens are. But typically we hear about the pages being associated with aces because aces are also about beginnings. The pages are about beginnings, right? But the difference being that the pages are more closely associated with the tens because of that Malkut energy. For me, the pages are that point where, okay, creation has happened going down the Tree of Life. And now we exist and we are trying to understand that process that has brought us here. So now we're at the beginning of going back up the tree. And for me, that's what the pages represent. And so they are heavily associated to me with the tens. There is a lot of the same energy because it is the same Sephira, Malkut, in the same world, which is the kingdom. And so, Bariah, which is creation, Malkut being the kingdom. And so we are now have the earth, and now we want to understand where the earth came from. And that's where our page comes in. Glad to see Tony here. She's chopping vegetables. It's always nice when people are at least here with you, even if they're doing other things. I do that myself sometimes. I'll say hello, and then I'll just do my own thing while I listen to people on YouTube. So if you don't want to miss my conversations about the 78 cards in 78 weeks, do like and subscribe to my channel. Every Sunday, immediately after the broadcast, I post the next week. And so you'll actually be able to get a notification for that next broadcast. So why don't we take a look at the card I created. But before we do, I thought I'd share my coloring, as I often do. I decided to add some diversity to my deck. And I was actually thinking to myself about this being an androgynous or LGBT person when I colored them. Not necessarily because of what Jodorowsky said, but because I wanted representation as I colored my deck. These flowers, they keep saying that they are lilies, but to me, these have always looked like tulips. And so I have gone with tulips in my own card. And so here it is. So this was the first draft. This was the initial, what I did. And then I had gotten to thinking to myself that I needed to associate it with this card. Because for me, when I was creating it, I was thinking, okay, this child is in this room where these same people are celebrating in the Three of Cups. And so they're either to the right or to the left, enjoying the goldfish. And so I then recolored the card to match. And so now you can actually see, look, they're in the same room. And thus we're connecting our cups. And you'll see I put the pink tulips in there, which are from the RWS imagery. And we have our fish in the fish bowl. For me, this really personally resonates. As a child, I had a goldfish. I purchased it with my own money for 19 cents. And it was, about an inch long. And over 10 years, it grew to be probably 8 to 10 inches long, just huge. And I just remember staring at it for long periods of time, watching it swim and its fins float in the water. And I feel like, pardon me, that was a time in my life where I was developing my intuition. And I thought that I might go ahead, since I found this image with the wings, use the wings as a nod to that idea of Cupid, of that infatuation, that message of love, and just add that in there. A child playing with their costume, basically, is Cupid here in this particular card. And you'll see here where I have added the little notations, as I discussed earlier, about the envelope 4 pages. So this is our page of water, and then our archetype, which I'm calling the dreamer. And I do like how it ended up flowing and turning out a lot. And I am glad that as I worked with it, I was able to refine my ideas for the courts overall. So that is our Page of Cups. And as always, these lives are much shorter when I don't have interaction. I'm sure there's something exciting going on today that I did not know about, the reason that my usual crowd aren't here. But I am glad to have Tony here, and I'm glad that you're watching in playback. Do not forget to like and subscribe. You will find on Wednesday that I'm posting a VR to a tag that Amy from Strength Reverse did this morning in response to Katie Flowers' video. I can't remember the tag now. I think it's like no disclaimers. Yeah, something like that. So that'll be on Wednesday. And then next week, we will be looking at our next card. Let's see what that card is going to be. One more shuffle. Ready? I do, as always, invite you to participate in this live by sharing your thoughts about the cards and some of your favorite cards and that type of thing. And so let's see what card is next week. Maybe one of you want to volunteer to be on the live with me. Okay. It is going to be the 7 of Pentacles. And so looking forward to that card. This is an interesting card in that my understanding of it when I first saw this image is completely different than my understanding of it having studied it over the years. And so I'll be adding to that study and seeing where we go with that. Let's take a look and see if I've actually started it. Because that, like some of the cards, you'll know that I have previously started because I was working sporadically on them versus doing a series of studies to actually finish the project. I made a couple of little notes of things that kind of inspired me, but I haven't really done much in the way of research for this card. So I will be getting a lot of study in. Before we close, I do want to share one thing with you that I haven't shared before. I've talked about how I'm doing the guidebook as I go. And so far, I've only done the information about the cards. And this is actually a preliminary table of contents that I did. And you'll see there's lots of different items on there. Only 3 of these are actually the cards themselves. And so I still have a lot of writing to do. In fact, tomorrow I took the day off work to do writing for a project. I am doing an article that will be coming out this summer in the Cartomancer, and it is due very, very soon. So I hope to finish knocking it out tomorrow and get that over to the editors to look at. So next week, 7 of Pentacles. Please do join us, everyone. Until then, good journeys.